Hello, Adrienne here from Jess Karen Astrology, and I am here to talk to you about tomorrow's partial lunar eclipse and new moon in Aries. It's big energy. I don't know if any of you all are feeling it like I am. Um, Lots of intensity, cycles closing out, new cycles beginning, all kind of happening at the same time. I have a I don't know, very giddy feeling happening inside me. I'm really excited for tomorrow and this new beginning. And so yeah, a lot of things have come to me since the full moon and lunar eclipse. And yeah, I want to get into it. So let me pull up the chart. There we go. So this will be tomorrow morning at 6:58 a.m. Eastern time. And this is what the chart looks like. So, as you can see, we still have this huge stellium in Pisces, and now we also have an equal amount of planets in Aries. I think from the moon to Saturn is pretty much all together. The new moon is slightly farther away, but between Saturn and Mercury, they're really all together. So, what's the new moon? The new moon is the way that we self-actualize ourselves, what's on the inside out into the world, how we bring what's inside out. And we're bringing out a new sense of self, just a completely new sense of self. And we've been working toward this for some time now. We've been letting go of old patterns, old relationships, old ways of being, and we're really getting ready to step into this very new energy. So, what I'd like to talk about is Mercury. Mercury is, to me, it's the guide. Yeah, I'm just gonna put a little X right there by Mercury. It's the whole purpose of this moon, of this new moon. Mercury is the mind. It's our logical mind, um, left brain. It helps to put things in order. It's how we have knowledge. It's where we grab information. It's related to Gemini and to Virgo. Mercury communicates and it takes in information. Virgo side of Gemini um, dissolve, brings it in, digests it, and sort of sorts fact from fiction. It's the energy of yeah, separating things out. And so Mercury and Venus both went into Aries. And I think it's interesting because I think Venus went retrograde first at the beginning of March, and then Mercury right after the new moon, the full moon. And now they're both still retrograde. Venus has moved into Pisces. Mercury will be going into Pisces. I believe that Mercury will station direct on the 7th of April and then Venus on the 13th. And they'll both be traveling through their shadow points for a little while. Why do I think that this is happening? Well, um, we've taken in new information about ourselves between the new moon and now, the full moon and now. And that new information is helping us to close off that past lunar eclipse and to really begin a new phase. And when Mercury goes retrograde, it turns inward. It's not an outward grabbing, it's really doing the inward self-talk. It's it's commiserating with the inner sense of self. And Venus, when it goes retrograde, Venus is about values and values that have been externalized. Um, for example, our society values money. That's an external value system. When Venus moves inward, we begin to contemplate our own values. What do we truly value? And in the sign of Pisces, these values are linked to Piscean themes. Piscean themes would be themes such as compassion and universal love and forgiveness, acceptance. These are the energies. And so this whole Pisces stellium is helping to align us to those themes. Um, what else did I want to say? Back to Mercury, the mind. So just after the eclipse, I was sitting in contemplation and I started thinking about the mind. And I started thinking about, um, Mercury, the god Mercury or Hermes, depending on Roman or Greek mythology, was the god that could traverse the realms. Mercury could go into the underworld and above. And I started contemplating about this underworld. What exactly is an underworld? As a person that doesn't believe in heaven or hell, um, I started to think about the underworld. And then for the first time, I decided I would ask ChatGPT because, and I'm going to see if I can't pull up that conversation for us because I think I saved it. Um, but I had a conversation with ChatGPT about Mercury, and I was kind of blown away. Let's see, I think this is it right here. Yeah. So I asked GPT that I wanted to explore Gemini and Mercury, its ruler, and how they are related to consciousness. And ChatGPT gave me some information about looking through the lens of consciousness. Gemini represents the twins. It's inherently dualistic, embodying the multifaceted nature of human thought and experience. Um, this duality reflects the various aspects of consciousness, including the interplay between logic and intuition, reason and emotion. And it was long. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. But then I asked the question, oh, I don't know if I'm going to even be able to find this for you. Let's see. Here it is. I said, it is said that Mercury traverses the external world to the underworld. Can you comment? And ChatGPT said the idea that Mercury traverses from the external world to the underworld is rich with symbolism and meaning. In mythology, Mercury or Hermes is often depicted as the guide for souls, leading them between the realms of the living and the dead. This dual role reflects the association with communication, transition, and the bridging of the different states of being. So he says more about that. And I ask this question next. If the underworld is symbolic of the unconscious, one could say that Mercury retrograde represents the ability of the mind to knit together the consciousness of both the inner and the outer worlds for a complete view of reality. ChatGPT said, absolutely. That is a compelling interpretation. Mercury retrograde is often associated with introspection, reflection, and reevaluation of thoughts and communication. During this period, the usual flow of information, its external interactions may be disrupted, prompting individuals to turn inward. Inward journey can lead to deeper understanding of the subconscious. as it encourages contemplation of past experiences and all unresolved issues and unexamined beliefs. And that's all I'm going to read you about this conversation But I encourage you, it's kind of an interesting process to do. But the point is that when Mercury goes retrograde, it is not outwardly grabbing information, it's inwardly grabbing information. And in Aries, it's about who we truly are. Like it's at 0 degrees, so we haven't very well, I mean, we've started to get an inkling, but it's going back. It's going back, it's going to cross Neptune. It's going to cross Venus, and it's going to go back, and really it's going to internalize who we want to become. Who do we want to become? And who is already in us within our subconscious that is waiting to come forward. So that's interesting. At the very basic, according to evolutionary astrology, this chart, we would look at Pluto and the nodes. This will give us the basic framework as to what's going on. And so Pluto in Aquarius is asking us to break free of the constriction, the limitations that we've had in this past paradigm, Pluto through Capricorn, to break free to find our individuality, because our individuality has been compromised in this past journey. Not to say that it's negative, because we learn a lot of things during this period of time. The polarity point of Pluto is Leo. Leo is like our authentic selves, that person that we were as a small child before we got conditioned into behaviors and ways of being that were acceptable to the society. And so what Pluto is asking us to do is to break out of that and to really find the true self. Now, I find this to be interesting because the mind is going to really make an interplay between this. The mind is very, very important here. So then the nodes are in Virgo and Pisces. Now, Pisces is the all, the everything, the completion of all the things. It's everything packed into one. People would call it the Godhead. It's all the things. It's an energy. It holds all the things from Pisces, from the energy of Pisces. All things will be manifest, and everything that is manifest will eventually dissolve back into Pisces. The physical law that says that energy cannot be created or destroyed comes into play here, because we can't actually create anything new, because it's the energy source is fixed. And so what has to happen is old things die out and new things are born. And we're right in the middle of that, in the dying out of the old and using the energy as more dies off to begin this new energy. So that's the North Node in Pisces. We're actually going to be identifying ourselves, because the North Node is our future sense of self, our future moon. And we're going to be identifying ourselves with this Piscean energy. Like I said, acceptance, compassion, forgiveness, and universal love. This is the destination, the destiny of our beingness. Now, the South Node is in Virgo. And part of this opposition between Pisces and Virgo is Pisces is the whole, and Virgo looks at all of the details, the separation of the whole, like the forest through the trees, a tree as opposed to the forest. Now, through identifying ourselves as separate is what we are dealing with now. And it's awfully what we are going to be integrating into the whole. You can't want, we're not going to leave behind the idea of what it has been to be separate. And we experience it in all kinds of different ways. People, we separate ourselves from the physical world by wearing shoes, for example. We separate ourselves from nature by living in houses. We separate ourselves from each other by delineating all of these qualities that the mind would see as different. Um, and so there's all kinds of societal ills that have happened from this idea of separation. And what I'm saying is that this nodal axis, Pluto and the nodes are talking about breaking free from these limitations. And I'm saying that the limitations are very much linked to this idea of separation that we've been living through, and that we are about to integrate the wholeness. We'll have both sides. We'll be able to have compassion, but we'll also be able to see the differences, both sides. So the ruler of the South Node, surprisingly enough, is Mercury. And Mercury is all about the perceptions. We are shifting our perceptions. And interesting also is that the ruler of the North Node and the ruler of the South Node are conjunct, and they will come together sometime later tomorrow. Um, but these two conjunctions will be a new cycle. It'll be it's a new phase of coming together with both sides. How we will take have a new understanding, a new consciousness of ourselves and of who we are and where we've been and where we're going. That's what I think is happening here. We are literally in the middle of a shift of consciousness. People have been talking about the shift for such a long time. And I've come to realize that what the shift is a shift of consciousness. The world isn't going to end. Things aren't going to crash down. And I mean, maybe some of these things will happen as well. But what is really happening is the awareness, the consciousness that we have is going to expand. Jupiter is in Gemini, pointing that out. We are expanding our consciousness. Uranus is in Taurus. We are breaking apart values. Now, think about this. If our consciousness expands beyond the energy of separation, then we will value life differently. We'll value each other differently. And I think that this Uranus in Taurus is breaking apart the value structure that is related to the South Node. And Venus and Mercury have been retrograde. Venus is now in Pisces. I want to point out another important here. Let me just erase this sucker right there. I want to point out another thing that I noticed in this chart. So there's a kite here. Sextile, sextile, and then the opposition is going to be the South Node. So when I click on Venus, oops, why can't I? There we go. Oops, sorry, I hit it twice. Okay, when I click on Venus, we can see the two sextiles. If I click on to Neptune, you can only see one of the sextiles, which means that the kite is focused on Neptune. So a kite is essentially a grand trine, which you can see here. The grand trine is between Pluto, Uranus, and the South Node. Pluto showing where we're heading and what we're working with. South Node and Uranus show us what's breaking apart to allow this to happen. And the point, the sextile that's risen off the trine is Venus. And Venus, this is where we will begin to soar to these new heights. We can soar to these new heights through aligning our values with the Piscean energy of compassion, of forgiveness, of acceptance, and of universal love. We will treat ourselves and those outside of ourselves quite differently because we are all part of a whole. We're not going to end that. We're all going to share this world together. And if we continue to see ourselves as separate in this world, we're going to end with more destruction and more hate. And so Venus, the values, is what needs to shift. I want to draw our attention to, here, I'm going to clear that kite away. I want to draw our attention to Saturn here. Saturn is at 24 degrees Pisces, and Uranus is at 24 degrees of Taurus. This is an exact sextile. And it's a last sextile. It's where we are beginning to form this new identity that is supportive of this breaking free from an old value system. It's frightening to break free from money. I mean, I don't know that anybody believes we can. Um, I've said for a very long time, like, there is no other creature on the planet that is carrying around a wallet or with bank accounts. And so I know through looking at nature that we can live on this planet with money, without money. And it's a matter of shift of consciousness, of mind to be able to do that. So Saturn in Pisces is about this emotional container. So the emotions, if the emotions are watery substance, then in order to hold that watery substance so it doesn't spill all over, you need a container, like in a glass of water, or here I have a cup of coffee. The container that holds the emotions. In the energy of Pisces, the way I've seen it is Pisces, as things dissolve, those things that we are really attached to give us there's emotional flooding that happens in this dissolving. So we're all feeling quite emotional as things dissolve. And, we're all watching here in the United States, our country just come apart, and people are angry, the emotions are flying. This strong container to hold this, which is actually built through exposure to these energies over time, which ends up like building a callus, sort of a, a protective energy from that. And I think that this structure, this emotional container, that is aligned with this energy of Pisces, of these emotions, I think that it will help us as we break free from the value structure. That's to me what this energy is saying. Now, a lot of people will say that Uranus is a very shocking. It's electricity. It it brings about around very sudden change, sudden eruption, sudden shift. Um, and yes, that absolutely is possible. I don't want to speak to whether what might happen. The veil is over those eyes, but this breaking apart of our value structure is imminent. Venus is ruled by Taurus. Taurus is retrograde in Pisces. Saturn, the emotional container, is in Pisces. The North Node is in Pisces, where Neptune is at its last degree in Pisces. In fact, its last 3 minutes in Pisces, and shortly after the moon tomorrow, it will shift. So yeah, we're we're not going to be in Kansas anymore. And everything is new, and I'm excited for the new things. Um, yeah, I think that when the external world starts to shift around us, this internal world will take over. And I think that's part of this um, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, definitely Saturn in Pisces, but also I think that Mars in Cancer, we will be guided from our emotional realm. We're holding that emotional container strong. We've had this retrograde of Mars and now moving forward again. And we're moving forward with a sense of ease and a sense of security that we are who we are and we can withstand whatever it is that's coming. And let me add here again that I think that what is coming is the shift of consciousness. Consciousness has to do with both what we believe and what we experience. And they're related to each other. And the values are also related to what we believe. What we believe is the basis, and what we believe is expanding and changing. Where we once believed in our system of separation, perhaps many of us are shifting away from that and beginning to come together. I think that this is the only way we're going to survive as humanity and really as life on this planet is if we can recognize that we're all everybody in the same boat. Everybody, everything, every tree, all the water, the land, all of these things are oneness, and we can begin to act with that in our consciousness. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Let's watch Mercury and Neptune over the next year and a half because they are the rulers of the nodes. And this nodal shift from one perspective to a different perspective, one of separation to the perspective of wholeness, um, I think is worth paying attention to. So I hope that my discussion of this eclipse energy and new beginnings resonated with you. And if you're ever interested in having me take a look at your chart, I think I offer a unique perspective. And you can reach out to me at jasskiranastrology.com. And yeah, my website. I also am producing a written report, my moon report on Substack, and I will put the link to the subscription below, as well as my email address and my website. So thank you all again for listening, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Let me shut this down.